Well, Razorback fans, the schedule kind of came out, at least for Razorback basketball, and who they'll be playing in the conference as well as where. And I got some problems with it, so let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of the John Nabors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday. And to answer your question, no, I'm not wearing this tank top because I want to show off my guns I don't have. I'm just supporting a friend of Work Harder Jim down there in Little Rock. So shout out to Christian. But I wanted to get into it today a little bit on the basketball side for still waiting at least on some news to pop for the Razorbacks and hopefully some transfer news that's going to be going on or some recruiting. But still, we'll be seeing that and hopefully hearing about that here after a while. But I wanted to start the podcast in talking about something that really upset me, or it maybe is upset's a strong word. I like to be a little bit dramatic sometimes. But it was something that I just wasn't a fan of. And it had to do with the SEC officially announcing the schedule for conference opponents this upcoming season. Now, we do not know the dates of these games. We do not know, what time or anything. The only thing we know is that all these teams will be playing an 18-game schedule. And we know who they're playing and where they're playing. That's all we got. So I was really excited to see how this was going to go down. I was really excited to see the possibility of Arkansas being able to have a really good draw into, hopefully what I was thinking, a really great slate of games that would bring in a lot of television audiences, because now that Calipari's at Arkansas, it's all there. Now, I'm going to list you the opponents that Arkansas will be facing off against this year at home, and then I'll go on the road, and that'll be that. Well, almost. We'll still have to talk about it. But Arkansas this year will be playing Alabama, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas at home in Bud Walton. And on the road, they will be going to Auburn, to Kentucky, to LSU, to Missouri, to South Carolina, to Tennessee, to Texas A&M, and to Vanderbilt. Now, I want to be perfectly clear about this. The games are in front of you. You got to play every game in the conference at least once. It is what it is. But if there was just one little change that K could have made for the schedule to make it worthwhile, it would have been having Arkansas and Kentucky play each other twice. The fact that Arkansas and Kentucky are not playing each other twice is truly a disaster. It is an abomination of what the SEC stands for, or at least reportedly what they stand for. The fact that this happened this year and they're fine with it is so stupid. I thought the SEC was about making money. I thought it was about, television ratings and trying to get as many eyeballs on the TVs as possible. That's what I thought it was about. And not having Arkansas and Kentucky play each other twice goes against that completely. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know how to say it. I'm blown away by the stupidity of all this. Now, is it going to be a huge deal that's going to make a difference in this team and this season in the SEC and how I view the entire season? No. But sometimes I just wonder, what was the reasoning behind this? I'd love to get with those who were in charge of scheduling and those who were involved and be like, why did you feel like this was not a matchup that you wanted to have twice? It's truly like you had two guys in there making the schedule and it was like, hey, what do you think about Arkansas and Kentucky? That's a pretty big game, right? It's probably going to be the biggest game of the SEC slate. Might be the biggest game in college basketball. Yeah, it is. You think we should have them play twice? Nah. We don't want too many people watching these two teams. Let's have them play just once. Makes sense to me. I mean, that's how I view it. I mean, that's the only reason I can really make sense out of it. And I don't want to hear this crap about them saying like, oh, well, there's this rotation and this. No, because you added Texas and Oklahoma into the conference. You had your chance. And you blew it. It is so stupid that you don't have this game twice. Now, if it was anything besides that, if they had made Arkansas and Kentucky play each other twice, this honestly would be a tremendous schedule in my opinion. Because you get some of your toughest games at home, and you got tough games on the road, no doubt. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of how it could have been a lot worse, it absolutely could have. You don't play Texas A&M twice this year. You only play them on the road, but you do get Texas twice this year. Your home games, Alabama is a great one. Florida is a solid one. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I think Ole Miss is going to be really good. I really do with the Chris Beard. And Mississippi State, both teams, tournament teams. And then you got Texas at home, which will be a tournament team. Oklahoma, not totally sure about. We'll see, but probably not. But it'll be nice not to play them in Tulsa. And so you got a pretty good home schedule. And as far as your team games on the road, though, at Auburn, at Kentucky, and at Tennessee, and at Texas, those are your toughest games by far. At LSU, at Missouri, at South Carolina, whatever, at Vanderbilt, whatever, at A&M, whatever. Again, I'm not making excuses. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but given the schedule and how it goes, it could have been a lot worse. I just wish this could make sense to me. I just wish that the SEC didn't try to overthink this. I kept hoping for maybe like it was it 2 years ago? Or I guess was it last year for baseball when the season was, they just made the baseball schedule for the SEC, and they're like, oh, crap, we didn't put Arkansas and Tennessee on the schedule. We need to fix this, George. All right, go fix it. Go fix it quick. And then they just reversed it, and they made it happen. It's probably not going to be that case, but just try to make sense out of it, SEC, is really what I'm at. You should have gone to 20 games is what you should have done. You should have gone to 20 SEC games. The 18 made sense for when you had 14 SEC teams, but now you got 16. I think most coaches, if not all coaches, are in favor of having a 20-game SEC schedule because that's 2 additional games against high-quality opponents, or at least quality opponents that you could potentially have. Build up that net ranking. And it keeps a lot more money in the conference. So I feel like it should have been a no-brainer to make the most sense in having Arkansas and Kentucky play twice. But at least they're playing over there in Rupp once, and that's really what is the biggest deal, the most important deal, whether I like it or not. It's just the way it is. So at least we have that. At least we can look to that. But still, this is just it's too bad. It's too bad. But once again, the SEC dropped the ball on that. But we'll talk about scheduling in general and how I feel like it could really benefit the SEC and what it needs to be like in all sports. Maybe I'm looking at it too simplistically, but I think it'll be interesting to talk about. And we'll do that here in just a second. But folks, I got to tell you, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't really find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking at the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional only on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and may not have the time or resources to make a hire, but LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a new feature that'll help you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Talk about scheduling and whatnot, and we'll get into it's kind of a two-parter thing because it's going to be also a little bit about football when it comes to scheduling. So call it a segue, if you would. But the one thing that I've always felt like with the SEC continuing to grow, and we know that Oklahoma and Texas being a part of the conference now has certainly changed things for a long time. I'm in favor of Oklahoma and Texas being in the conference, so don't get me wrong. But it has changed things. And we know that scheduling is always going to be a very difficult thing to do. You're trying to make everybody happy. But here's my thing, is like you got to be able to give certain teams, certain schools, certain aspects of it. You got to be able to give them the thing that makes the most sense for them and for the conference. Like, yeah, I would be sitting here remiss saying that the Arkansas and Kentucky game in basketball should be played twice. I've even said that before all of this happened, before Calipari. I felt like Arkansas and Kentucky, they're the two biggest brands in the SEC when it comes to college basketball, and they need to just make that happen. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love for that just to be the case and makes total sense and simply just something you need to do. But I know, again, you're not going to make everybody happy. So here's my thing. Why not then? Why would you not want to have in basketball, for instance, you go to the 20-game schedule, you find instead of this nonsensical, well, let's just do it by regions, like Arkansas playing LSU, Missouri, and Texas A&M twice a year, each and every year. Those are the permanent opponents. Instead of just doing that, get the games that's going to make you the most money and is going to get the most eyeballs. Find those matchups, okay? And automatically, every single time, make those 2 a year. So let's go through the list of some of the biggest matchups and that are going to be a very big deal in college basketball and in the SEC. Arkansas, Kentucky. Okay, boom. Make that twice a year. Great. Auburn, Alabama. Boom. Twice a year. Make that a thing. Tennessee, Kentucky. Boom. Twice a year. How about Tennessee, Florida? Boom. Twice a year. I don't think it's that difficult. Just find the games that are going to be able to bring in the most eyeballs and do it. Knock it out. Texas, Oklahoma. Boom. Twice a year. Or, I think Ole Miss and Texas this year is definitely a big one. Chris Beard, Texas, all that thing. Boom. Twice a year. Just do that. Do that each and every time. Now, it's a little bit easier to say that in basketball because you have 18 and what I think will be eventually 20 games in conference. Everybody plays each other. It makes it a little bit easier. But when you take it from the perspective of, okay, well, now it's a little bit different because now you have football, which is still stuck with 8 games. It's not going to a 9-game schedule, at least not now. And you have 16 teams in the conference. You have eliminated divisions, which is great. I've been in favor of that too. But now it's about trying to make everybody happy as much as you can until you can at least add that extra conference game. So we know what the schedule is going to look like this upcoming season for Arkansas, and they got, I think, a good schedule, an ideal schedule. But it just needs to be to where you're taking it in the same perspective. You're being able to go in and say, all right, what are the biggest games? Okay, make sure those get priority. Make sure they get on the schedule. Make sure not to double up as much as we can on the same day. And then figure the rest out. Plug in place. Do it. And then for Arkansas, I would think that if you're talking about those particular types of schedules, for Arkansas, to me, it would be, of course, Texas. Like that would be the one that would probably bring in the most energy to it in football. And then after that, maybe an LSU, maybe an Ole Miss. But honestly, I think Texas A&M. Now, no one may not want to hear that, but I still believe that with the history and with the tradition and with the connections and everything, Arkansas should play both A&M and Texas every year in football. Now, if you want to throw in Ole Miss instead, or if you want to throw in LSU instead, I'll hear arguments for it, and that's fine. But when it comes to making sure Arkansas plays one particular opponent each and every year, it needs to be Texas. It needs to be Texas. And I know that they play Missouri every year, and they try to force this rivalry thing, and it's never going to be that. And that's fine. Everyone can still say that. I'm accepting, trust me, I accept that Arkansas and Missouri are going to get stuck together no matter what in every sport. It's unfortunate. It's terrible. Nobody wants it. Nobody watches it. Nobody cares. But it is the reality. So I'm living with that. I'm accepting of that. But I'm talking about what makes the most sense for Arkansas, what makes the most sense for Razorback fans, what makes the most sense for the conference, and to get the most eyeballs on the TVs at the most opportune moments. In football, that's the way it needs to be. Now, baseball is going to be really fascinating because you got 10 SEC series, and there's a lot of big teams in here that have a lot of say and a lot of pull. Arkansas, LSU, just to name those two. I mean, I think that those are the biggest brands in college baseball in the SEC. Florida, of course, is really big. I think South Carolina is still there. The Mississippi schools have, they've won titles here recently, but they're not exactly the, year in and year out consistency of what some of the other programs are. Tennessee's gained their way, but that's going to be weird to see what they do in baseball. But I feel like if you just go to the same rule as everything, just find the biggest matchups, find the biggest games, find the biggest series, give those priority, and let the rest take care of itself. That's what they need to do. We'll talk a little baseball on the other side of the breaks and have some fun with that too. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Shout out to Gabe Gackle. I wanted to give some praise to him as he was named to the All-SEC Freshman of the Week, which I'm always a fan of those awards, especially when they're not co. But he had 5 strikeouts and did not allow an earned run in his 3.1 innings over the 2 relief appearances against Mississippi State. And also, it is the 10th consecutive SEC home series win. Isn't that crazy? So Arkansas won every SEC series at home this year, which means they also won every SEC home series last year. Not too bad. He also concluded the weekend with 2 scoreless frames and 3 strikeouts in the Sunday's game, which was really great and came in huge. And also, it was Gackle's team-leading 6th multi-inning save of his freshman campaign. He's 3-2 this year as far as record goes. He has a 2.06 ERA in 35 innings over 19 appearances this year. And he is the 3rd Arkansas freshman to receive an SEC Weekly honor this season. Of course, Colin Fisher and Nolan Souza being the other 2. But I wanted to give a shout-out to him. And another thing, too, is about seeding. Seeding is always fascinating when it comes to how it's approached by the conference, by the SEC, by everyone involved. And I believe that just given the circumstances of where everything's at, Arkansas being number 3 in the country right now, according to D1 Baseball, I think Arkansas ends up with, honestly, a 3 or 4 national seed. And that's about where I want. I went back and looked in 2018, and I always like to, look at trends and where it was at. And Arkansas was a 3 seed that year. So I like that. That's where they need to be. And so playing at home, obviously, is always a lot better. It does a lot better for the economy here in the city of Fayetteville. It makes it a lot more fun for fans to be there. And, fans are going to pack the house like it's never been packed before once the regional starts up. However, it's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure gets put on the team whenever they play at home. But that national seed means a lot. And I know it's never like a sure thing, but Dave Van Horn's record of getting through, like once he gets to the super regional, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he's going to make it to the College World Series. Arkansas has almost never lost in the super regionals. They either got bounced in the regionals or they went to the World Series. So having those games at home and the way that Arkansas season has gone at home so far this year, I think they've only lost, 5 games, 6 games at home? I mean, it's just been incredible. So hopefully they get a good matchup and a good draw, and hopefully they have guys like Gabe Gackle being able to continue to help them out there too. That's important. But either way, appreciate everybody listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get it from me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.